Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I am here this lovely Monday morning with David, and we're joined again by Marcus Weston, which is very exciting.
Yes.
Marcus is the consummate Kabbalah teacher, business expert extraordinaire, and that's one of the reasons we have him on today's episode, because we are talking about one of the benefits of the pandemic and everything that the last year and a half has brought us to is that many of us are working from home. And that is something that I think most of us never thought we would do. The truth of the matter is we're not only working from home, some of us are schooling from home, and the home has become a conglomerate of all of the areas of our life, which is something I don't even know the Kabbalists have ever had to handle, because school was never in home. And if you had a profession, chances are it wasn't out of your living room. So there is a lot of new, I think the modern challenges deserve the ancient wisdom to help us navigate. And also, since it seems it's not going away anytime soon, right? We see a lot of retail is giving way to online services. A lot of the big buildings that were packed full of offices, of executives, of managers, of sales teams even, they're working from their homes. And I have a student that works for a company in San Diego, for example, but she lives in Chicago and only needs to go to the office once or twice a year, which is really something that I think none of us could have predicted or even asked for. So we want to take this month's theme of creating the home that we want to live in, not only from a design point of view, but of course, spiritual point of view, that we want where we rest our energy to be the best place for us to grow ourselves and everything we're focused on in our lives. We have to somehow get to, how do we marry the two? How do we bring the place where we put our head down every night? How can we marry that with the place that we bring home the bacon, so to speak? The Weekly Energy Boost is a 7-day spiritual energy forecast. We've often taken the energy of the month and woven that into our topics as well. And that's why we're focused on the home. This being the month of Virgo, Virgos are very concerned with spaces and places, neatness, organization, logic, what makes sense. And so we want to bring that angle as well into our conversation. One of the reasons Marcus is here for this episode is he is that person that our students and our teachers go to for guidance and precision when it comes to work, abundance, prosperity, and creating it from a leadership point of view, how to inspire and awaken others to be in that space as well.
Good intro.
I like it.
I like that.
I have some stuff. Do you have some stuff, Marcus?
I got so much stuff.
You want to bring it?
Well, I mean, I just, it's been overwhelming, clearly, the fact that from a workplace point of view, or from a leadership point of view, or a management point of view, the amount of truths that has happened, that has infiltrated this old colloquial work-life balance. It's first of all worth pointing out, the only reason there might be a sense of work-life balance now is bandwidth, because people can work from home, and in many situations it has worked because there is the technology to allow it to work from home. But the problem is that there is no such thing really as work-life balance, because the concept of work-life balance suggests that there is a war or a conflict between, or a contradiction between work and life. And that's the issue. See, the first point I would like to talk about is that most of us think we have multiple branches of life. We have work, we have home, we have family, we have loved ones, we have kids, we have finance, we have money, we have hobbies, we have spare time, we have lots of things, and we have to juggle. And all those branches hide the common root, which is you. You see, if you're not better at work, you're not better at home. And you will bring your boss to work, and you will take your wife, You will take your wife to work, or husband or spouse to work, and you will bring your boss home. So I think it's the first issue, I think, with that term of work-life balance is you have to find somehow the spiritual root of you. How are you doing better? And of course, there are many ways that companies get this right and wrong. We can talk about that. But how are you doing better? Because if you're not, then you're going to have to run to work and escape home. That's not going to work, right? That statistically has resulted in a ton of negative energy in personal life, a decline in personal development, certainly physical and mental health problems, right? So I think that's one of the first points, is that there is no balance because there's no contradiction. You have to find the harmonious question of your own discipline to give more energy into all those now kind of cumulative parts.
One of the things that the Kabbalists share is that the home is a vessel for the person, the way that the body is a vessel for the soul. And everything that we learn in Kabbalah is all about how to optimize and improve the vessel. When a vessel is broken, when a vessel has a hole in it, when a vessel is dirty, that which it contains becomes contaminated or ineffective or not enjoyable. So, for example, if I have a dirty cup and I pour fine wine in it, it's no longer fine wine. And if I have a clean cup but it has a hole in it and I pour fine wine in it, that wine's going to spill all over the table. So the vessel is so important. People are always so focused on the energy. How do I get this energy? How do I get that energy? How do I get more energy? How do I get more money or more love or more whatever it is? And although our purpose is to receive more, the way to go about it is to focus on the vessel. And the home is probably the second most important vessel that exists in our lives. And that's why we're obsessed with our home. That's why real estate is always a good investment, because everybody needs a home. Everybody needs a place to dwell where the energy becomes manifest. And the Kabbalists say that the most important thing that you should know about your home is to have peace in your home, that there's the energy of peace. What does peace mean? Peace comes from the word in the Kabbalistic language, which is something that is complete, something that is whole. Is the environment that you have in your home toxic in any way? Is there anger? Is there fighting? Is there separation? Is there hostility? Are your kids afraid of you when you come? Do they have no boundaries? What is the energy of the home? Is the couple fighting? Who do you bring to your home? Do you bring people who are jealous of you? Do you bring people who their energy is not something that you would want to have as part of your life? All of these things affect the vessel. In the same way, let's go back to the glass of fine wine. If I have like a cup of orange soda, and then you're drinking nice wine, I say, well, I want some wine. So I just finished drinking this soda.
Cringe.
And then I say, can you pour some wine in this cup?
Not in my house.
Now you got this like orange Fanta flavored wine that, again, ruins the whole thing. So when you bring people over your house who don't have the right energy, or who spend their time there, whatever it is, now what you're doing is you're creating Fanta flavored wine, and it's disgusting. And I think we're gonna have a show about where your husband's gonna come on, and this is his thing. This is like everyone's got their magic power, and his magic power is, he has a couple magic powers, but one of his big things is to remove any kind of negative energy, especially in homes. But that's important. I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't have anybody over our house, but there are ways
there's
to also...
preventative and there's curative.
That's right. Those are the words I was looking for. So and a lot of times when people ask me about wealth building, one of the most important components of wealth building is, what is your home like? What is the relationship like between you and your partner in your house, your love partner? If there's a crack between the two of you, there's going to be a crack in your business. There's going to be a crack in your bank account. There's going to be a crack in your consciousness. So it all starts in the home. It's important that your home is clean. It's important that you have respect for your home. It's important that you give honor to it. So many different aspects of. So now that we're working from home, it just goes even more to that, which is I'm bringing my work home, fine, but how do I make sure that the home is of the highest integrity all the time? It's going to affect your work, and then vice versa, it's going to affect the energy of the home.
To me, the dissonance begins with what Marcus was saying, but on a more manifested level, is a lot of people have two different personas. They're a tiger at work and a pussycat at home, or vice versa. And it was a real turning point for people when both cats had to function in the same room. And to navigate, I think one thing that feels good for those people that are the tiger in the office is that they can leave it at home and they can come home and be the spiritual, kind, doting parent or spouse. But then when they get to the office, they're cutthroat. The rules are off the table. They can get at them, and then they come home and they're the angel again. And so the dichotomy I would say that it's a really almost polarization of the self had to come to an end. You can't be both of those people in the same space around the same people. You've got to pick. And I feel that was a spiritual assignment, that the universe said, be you. Don't do costume changes between the office and the home. Don't pretend to be one person here, but really be one person there. Be authentic and find a way to bridge the need to be aggressive in one place and passive in another. What's the middle ground, and who is the real you?
Yeah, I love that. It's truths exposed. I think people realize they went to work and they had beautiful marriages because they went to work. And had they had to spend 24 hours with their husbands or wives, they would have not really enjoyed their marriage as much. Some people are desperate to spend more time with their kids, and so to have those couple of hours in the morning and the afternoon have actually created great productivity. So truth is exposed. I definitely agree. I've seen that.
Well, so a good question for everyone who's listening is practically, what can you do to improve the energy of your home? We sleep there. We eat. We spend the majority of our time in our home. So the home is giving us energy. And if we're not giving it energy, then we're not really recharging our battery in the right way. Now I have a car. It's an electric car, and sometimes it annoys me that there's two different speeds at which it charges the battery. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know why it toggles between these two. But when it's on the optimal charging frequency, it charges in like 5 hours, which is great because overnight I come back and the car is charged. But when it's on the other toggle, it takes like 3 days. And I'm like, what's going on? It's like almost like my house is like saying, I'm not going to output the energy you desire for your home. It might sound like a stupid example, but sometimes it's like my house is
showing you who's boss.
Yeah, telling me, hey, you didn't give me energy. I'm not going to give you energy. So it sounds silly, but this is so important. When you walk into your home, you have to feel like it is a place of holy.
It's your temple.
It's your temple.
Yeah.
It's your temple. It's your source of nourishment, and not that many people can say that. So there's many levels of it. Number one, practically, what's your relationship like between you and the other people there? Starts with your partner. And if you live by yourself, then you can just skip this one.
Well, maybe not, because maybe there is a relationship that you're having in your mind and your emotions, which are bouncing off the walls to then give reverberation back to you, right? So it's still...
So if I'm hiding in my home, if I'm sad in my home...
you're going to feel that. I'm sure Mordechai walks in and
Mordechai
what he does...
is Elisheva's husband, yes.
Yeah, and what he does in the homes that he cleanses, he feels, wow, there's great anger here, or there's great solitude here, or there's great aggression here, right? Because... And you can be that to yourself. It's your energy, it's your aura that you output into the walls, which it then vibrates at.
I've seen that firsthand. Mordechai will walk into a room and then ask the host of the house, what happened here, or what's going on here.
Right. Or even in this room, maybe.
What?
Even in this particular room.
Honestly, I'll tell you, we should save it for that episode, but he went into someone's house, into a cabinet. There was a corner... shelving unit in a bathroom. And he said, what happened here? And I kid you not, someone hit their head there and died.
Oh my God.
Jeez.
Wow.
So it's the walls absorb that energy. And sometimes it's not our responsibility because it happened before we were there, but it's our responsibility to change that energy once it becomes ours.
And something to think about is that if you're living alone at home, most likely you have less dynamics to keep you spiritually optimized. Right? When we're by ourselves, we tend to do things that are a little bit more reactive than when there's other people around, people watching us and people holding us accountable. So on one hand, they might trigger us, and we might get more upset and reactive and whatnot. But there is also a danger that if you are alone, there can be a danger for sadness or all the other extracurricular activities that we do when we're alone.
I was told that that's one of the reasons that kids should share a bedroom. That there is a vulnerability that happens when you're alone.
Smart. I like
Emotional, spiritual vulnerability, and by having your kids share a room, you create that protection that they have each other to, in a way, buffer between
there's also a spiritual thing where we're not supposed to be in the home alone. There was something there. There's something I forgot. It's one of
your homework, David Guillaume.
I don't claim to know everything.
You heard it here first. David doesn't know everything.
We know you do, but it's important that you claim
and
that
maybe
you
I do know it, and I'm pretending I don't because there has to be some level of humility on this show. But there was something I remember when maybe a spouse went out of town or whatever, we would say like, "Oh, it's not good for that partner to be home alone." I forgot what it was. We have to look it up. I don't know if it was just a tradition.
We'll look into it and see if we can put it in the next week's
See if it's in the Zohar. I want to know. So we're starting in the level of what's a relationship like with your partner? What's a relationship like with your kids? Because we also know that who you are in the outside world, you can't lie in the home, right? So if everybody loves you in the outside world and everybody respects you and you're just like an amazing person, when you come home, it could be the exact opposite because your kids and your partner, your spouse, whoever it is, they will always reflect to you who the real you is. And that's hard for people sometimes, right? Because imagine, like, let's say, Marcus, like, you go give a lecture to 1,000 people and they're all high-fiving you and they love you. Yeah. And then you come home.
Slave.
And then you come home. I can't imagine that your wife, who's also an elevated spiritual person, is like saying, Marcus, wow, the children line up. Yeah. Children line up. Marcus, your dad's coming home. Dad's home. Take off his shoes. Yeah. Give him a shoulder massage.
Spiritual discipline.
two ice cubes in the whiskey, not one.
Two. Exactly. Bring out your father's favorite whiskey.
Yeah, the bath is run. Dinner served. Dinner served.
So I can't imagine it's like that. It's kind of like, wait, where were?
Does anyone actually have that life?
It was funny. Last night I gave the lecture, right? And we were late because a comedian came on and it took another 20 minutes and I couldn't leave. So my wife's calling me like, where are you? You have to bathe the kids. And I'm like, I'm at the lecture. It's like, so? So what's your point? You got to be home for the kids.
I'll tell you a funny story. So Monica's book in her last book.
Monica Berg.
Rethink Love.
Rethink Love. There's an example that she picks on, I forget the name of the guy, perhaps you remember, where this guy had a really awful relationship because he would walk home every day and his wife would be there greeting him, looking beautiful, with a glass of whiskey, giving him a huge hug and suggesting the bath was run and dinner was ready whenever he wanted and everything looked so wonderful. And eventually he became so bored, he resented that. We're joking with Monica. Wouldn't that be nice once in a while? It sounds ideal. What's wrong with that? But she's right, apparently. Yeah.
All right. So your home is going to reflect who you are. Don't take it personally. Someone said something really funny recently in our morning meditations. One of my students asked this person who's been married for like 35 years, give any marriage tips. So he said every time your spouse is talking to you and it upsets you, you take a glass of water, you drink it, you swish it around in your mouth, and you wait 2 minutes. That's his advice. And he said you do not respond. So the secret is never take anything personally in your home. Never take what your children say or do personally. Never take what your partner or spouse says personally. Always remember the power of keeping peace in the home. And the spirituality in the home is more important than the spirituality outside the home.
I read something as well which says something like, how you treat the light is how your soul group, which clearly means your home, right? Your wife, your spouse, your partner, your kids, will treat you. It's a very interesting kind of metric to understand what your home dynamic is, and therefore what a truth or an insightful truth, an invisible truth to you about how you're treating the light, how you're treating your own spiritual work. Because your home is your soul group, it's your closest form of energy, and therefore it's the feedback to the various other things that you're doing out there as you leave the home. A home is that kind of wonderful feedback for you.
And on that same token, I remember we would teach this in our relationship classes, that if you want to know what God thinks about you, it's what your spouse thinks about you.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a powerful one.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back to the work part of it.
You
right?
mean the work in the home?
Well, I think I want to say even maybe working isn't the right title, because looking at us, the three of us personally, at 5 p.m. we don't clock out, right? For some of us who have that, are really passionate about what they do, it's life. It's not simply a way to make ends meet. It is a passion, and it drives everything. So even though I may get home at 5 p.m. or 3 p.m. or 6 p.m., I don't check out.
Right.
I am still available. I may have meetings. I teach classes, as I know you guys do as well. So for us, it wasn't really about managing time. It was more about managing space. And I think that that's something, I'm sure that there are listeners out there who are very passionate about serving their clients, very passionate about the products they produce, very passionate about the mission of the organization or the company that they work for, whether they're in upper management or they're on the ground. But when it came time to house the two under the same roof, the challenge then became, how do I make time for myself? How do I create that? I want my home to be the energetic, I don't know what you want to call it, Taj Mahal that it can be. Yeah. And at the same time, I'm now dealing with clients at home. I have files and folders and computers. And I felt, for me personally, I used to have a system. And then suddenly my dining room table became both school, work, and family all in one. It was really stressful. And I don't know that everybody has struck that balance yet. And I also don't know that everybody is at peace with it yet, to use your word, David. It's like, I know I got to do it this way. My office closed. Mine didn't, but I know people out there that their office doesn't exist anymore. There is nowhere to go. They have to work at home. And maybe they're in a 1-bedroom apartment. Maybe they turned their garage. I know somebody that turned their garage into their office, and now they just walk down the driveway to get to work. And I feel like our audience needs to understand that work-life balance isn't only about work and groceries. It's about making sure that I am devoting the time to nurture every aspect of my life, and not being on the phone when I'm supposed to be with my kids, not cooking lunch while I'm in a Zoom meeting with my colleagues. Really being clear about having those boundaries, because eventually if I'm trying to nourish 3 different parts of my life, which, as you said in the beginning, there are no real parts. It's all is one, but I'm splitting myself and my resources. Something is going to falter. There's going to be cost somewhere, and we want to prevent that.
Yeah, and it's very difficult to do practically. It's a nice theory, but the fact is, when you're working and your kids are homeschooling, and you probably not got a computer and a bedroom for each, and a nice soundproof room for you to be totally productive and focused in. And
a conscientious group of children who are not going to try and play video games when you're not over their shoulder.
Exactly. Yeah. Pretending to stare at the computer very avidly.
While they're listening to music instead of the teacher.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that's about.
No, that's clearly tested. And I think from a work point of view, what I've seen is there is a very, very sincere effort for leaders to turn from being very directive, because like you say, you could be this animal at work, and you walk in and that's it, your hours are clocked and you're gung-ho and game on. And so you kind of respond well to direction because it's just more efficient to act. they're now becoming much more empathetic in their leadership, because many meetings, and there's another whole subject, right? The inefficiency and time wasting that now can't happen. At work, you were given this great space and this great time, and it was utterly inefficient. It was probably a footprint that was unnecessary in terms of company cost. Definitely in terms of time efficiency was utterly wasteful. And now you kind of see those things ironed out. Meetings, what an absolute waste of time. How useless are most of the meetings that most of us have?
Most
right?
meetings could just be an email.
Yeah, right? Ridiculous. So the whole nature of a meeting now is not just cut, but also how it's run by a leader has to be so utterly empathetic, because everyone's felt bereavement. Everyone's getting up at different times, happy to run out the house at 6:30 because the kids are going nuts. Leave that to your partner. now you're involved in that craziness. And so the amount of emotional baggage that comes to a work meeting or some kind of daily direction is very different, and that has to be respected, discussed, honored, talked about in a very different way than you could just get rid of or cut off in the workplace.
Something else practical, maybe not so spiritual, that came to my mind. I spoke to someone who was in real estate a long time ago, who I respect, probably like 8-9 years ago, and I said, how did you go about buying your home even? And what's the best way to do it when we're first thinking about having our first home? And I think a lot of times, here's what he said. He said, it's okay to overpay for the home you love. Don't look at it as an investment. This is just practical advice. And he said, when it comes to your home, you should do everything possible, obviously within budget, to build the temple, that holy, that powerful, that positive energy that you want. And I'm sharing this because sometimes it could be that someone's listening to this right now and they struggle with, how much do I invest in the home versus maybe investing in a car, or investing in school, or investing in my health, or whatever it is, or going on vacations. And what he told me was, I would first and foremost invest in your home. That always brings a better return on investment, both spiritually, energetically, in every way. So I thought that was great practical advice that I learned, and until today I think about it, because sometimes you want to get a deal. I was talking to a real estate agent, and he said, you'd be shocked that people have their dream home, they're in negotiation, they go back and forth with offers, and it's always that last like couple $1,000s that they get stubborn about. Like maybe the seller comes back and says, I want 10,000 more, 50,000 more, 100,000 more, whatever it is. And then the buyer goes, you know what? Screw it. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, but
right.
The percentage on the ask price is
nothing.
negligible. Yeah.
Like it could be like a $5 million home, and they want like 50,000 more, and the guy's like, you know what?
Yeah.
Screw you.
Yeah.
I'm not letting you get the best of me. And it said that most deals fall apart at the very end moment, at the last second, for stupidity, and all of that is obviously just ego and people not valuing their own time, thinking that I don't want somebody to best me on a deal. And at the end of the day, you should invest in your home.
Well, I want to ask Marcus a question because, again, with your hours clocked of expertise, let's say we were having this conversation 2 years ago when it wasn't a thing, but you had someone coming to you and asking you, I have a 9-to-5 job, but I also want to start my own business, and I don't want to stop working because I'm not going to have income. How would you guide them to not to continue to be a great employee and add value, but at the same time nurture and invest this seedling that they want to plant for? To me, it's the same question, right?
Yeah.
I need to be a good employee, and I also need to be a good friend, spouse, parent, and all the other roles that we play simultaneously now.
Yeah.
How do I do that in the same space?
Yeah. And the answer is clearly you have to home start, right? The biggest problem with many startups is you quit your job too early. And then suddenly the funding doesn't happen on the startup, and you're suddenly not touching revenue for a year, and you're in trouble. And the answer is you have to do everything simultaneously. And the test or the testament to if that answer will be successful for you is really all about desire. Because if you don't desire that new startup or new world enough, you will fall, you will flake, because it's just so difficult. And it is a bit survival of the fittest. It is literally where the biggest vessels will win, because they have the self-discipline and the determination and the desire just to make it work. And it's not easy, and it involves 1,000 physical and spiritual things. But yes, like you say, you have to manage those things simultaneously.
Wait, manage what things?
Well, in the example of I want to leave my job and start a business.
Oh, yes.
Right? You're going to have to still maintain the 9-to-5 thing you do.
Well, I have a lot of opinions about this. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you're going to have to double up on what you want to start.
I'm asking the question not because I'm actually curious, but because I think it's the same challenge. Is I've got to be this amazing producer and continue to produce for this company that I work for, or whatever it is, the organization, and at the same time, I have to invest in my family, my own health and spiritual growth, my well-being, my relationship simultaneously, right? Before we used to be able to say 5 p.m., I'm a family man, right?
Well, that's one of the keys there, right? Because I think the old work way was all around hours, and the new work way is around productivity, despite hours. And what companies now, I think, are more inclined to say is, okay, work from home, we have a problem trusting you, but let's see, and let's scorecard that based on productivity, and then you decide your hours. Because as long as you're hitting these numbers, and as long as you're doing everything I want you to do and more, I don't really mind what time you're doing it, or when you get up, or how much you play with your kids. Just keep pulling these numbers.
But that also speaks volumes to being present and being 100% with whoever you're with when you're with them, because that requires you to be 100% in those hours that you provide to your employer, and 100% in the time that you provide to your family, and in the 100% of the time that you provide to yourself.
That's also the biggest issue, because all of us think multitasking is multi-juggling, but it's not. It's taking one ball at a time. You know, your kids are going to feel your presence if you're 10 minutes 100% with them than if you're 1 hour around them on the phone. So that, I mean, that's one of the biggest. Steve Jobs used to say that the most important attribute of time management is saying no to people. Because the amount of distractions that, look at us, we've got phones here, I've got 2 bananas there, which I'm at some point going to start nibbling, right? We've got computers, we've got screens. It's just too easy to get distracted. And I think there are studies that suggest that only once you hit about 27 minutes of focus, you actually start to produce. Right. And most of us never get there. So we work 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours or whatever hours we work, but we've never even peaked at the efficiency or productivity we could, because we're multitasking. And that's the biggest problem with working from home, is that you think you're getting somewhere because you're doing so many things, but it's like they say full gas in neutral. You're the hamster in the wheel. You're working so hard and you're not getting something.
I feel that I am so guilty of that, trying to make everything work all at once rather than dividing up the time and
it's the most difficult
discipline
thing.
like that.
Yeah.
A popular discussion that's roaming around kind of in business chat groups and Facebook groups are, how do you keep diligence on overseas employees or virtual employees? How do you know that they're working? How do you know that they're putting in the effort? So there's different ways of measuring it. Check out their KPIs and see, well, are they hitting their numbers? Doesn't even matter if they're working or not, but are they hitting their numbers? That's one way of doing it. There's also software that is spying on your computer that with consent.
Love that.
That is literally, it watches them. It monitors the scrolling of the mouse.
And knows if you're in pajamas or not.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen it. I know HR deals with it. So I'm thinking, but there's obviously technology that is making sure that you're held accountable. What I'm going to share is the spiritual side of this, is that if you are working from home, it will be felt what kind of energy you give. And the employees that I've seen do well, grow, and become successful, and eventually have their own businesses maybe, and just thrive, are the ones who work beyond what's expected, don't look at the clock. It's not about it's only about the passion of manifesting for that business, that person, that cause, whatever it is. And they're not keeping score of what they should output or not. Whenever you're giving 100% with all your heart and soul, you start to attract miracles. You start to attract ideas, and you start to attract amazing things. And then that becomes noticed in your circle and by your boss and so on and so forth. I'm always intrigued by people who like stay with an organization for 15, 20, 30 years, and you see them get promoted constantly. And then they become the CEO of this huge organization. I always wonder, how do they get there? And the common denominator that I learned is that every position that they had, they gave 10,000% more than anybody else in that division. And it was just the obvious choice. This person should be the one that gets promoted. This person should take the new position. And it's very easy. It's easy to work really hard when you're in an office and everyone's watching you. And there's approval. And you're banging away at the computer and
there's validation from it. I showed up.
Look at the effort I'm putting in. But even more so, if your boss never sees you and your colleagues never see you, but you're manifesting at home in a big way, that energy is even more powerful. So I would say that it's between you and the creator, but know that everybody will know the truth either way. If you're taking like 7 tea breaks, watching a show, spending a little longer in the toilet than you need to, you know what I mean? Like
what is the ultimate time that one should spend
in the toilet, right? It's a question.
We should have covered that last.
We should have a whole show.
The Zohar.
We should have a whole show. Is it as soon as you're done, you're done? Is it as soon as your show is done, you're done? We don't know. But the point is, if you're at work in the toilet and you know that there's only one bathroom and you know that somebody's going to need it next, you're quick. You're quick to go. So it's always don't you miss these conversations?
I do.
It's been a while.
It has been a while.
I know.
I have not been purple in quite some time.
It has been a while since I've made you blush on this show. So, well, you got to interrupt the pattern of people at home.
Absolutely.
So my
at
point.
my expense.
For those of you on the podcast, not on the Facebook Live, it is definitely a sight to be seen. So. Elisheva, not the
bathroom trip.
Not the bathroom trip.
Okay. Well, listen, I did want to dedicate some time, I guess we'll have to table it for next week's episode, to talking about tools to shift the energy. That if you want to create, I know for a lot of my students, we've talked about, for example, creating a space in the home for meditation and connection, creating a space in the home, now you may have to have a home office. But what one of the things that I found especially powerful is the Kabbalistic tools to shifting energy in these places. So maybe we'll table it for next week's episode so that we can focus on not only, as we said before, the curative approach. We can actually do both next week, is the preventative tools and the curative tools once the energy has been soiled, let's say.
Right.
Last comments before we say goodbye to our friends?
No, just the idea that spiritual investment in you is what leaches into all the branches. Otherwise, you're stealing from Peter to give to Paul. You're going to have to somehow manage and mitigate and take from one to now do the other. You're taking from your kids to give to work, you're from work to give to your wife, to give to your wife to give you exercise. And it just can't work. It doesn't work. And we've seen a year where we've just been flustered by that imbalance. The spiritual, that moment in the day where you can just invest in yourself and become just a bigger energy to be felt in all those branches. So the light does some of that work for you is important.
I love that. It all starts at home, and don't ever make your home a second priority, because the energy of the home is good. Every other part of your life will eventually heal.
I think about it like a battery charger. You always come back to it to get charged,
right,
to go and do what you need to do. If the battery charger isn't working, the battery's not going to charge. It's
funny, because I'm moving, right? Relocating. And it's true. Just to work from anywhere in the world is so exciting. I love to travel. I love to go and talk and teach and meet people all over the world. But you have to have a home. If you haven't got a home, I'm so unsettled. And it normally takes me months to kind of develop my home, that cave. And then suddenly my entire life rebalances. It's very true. I'm thinking you have to have your home settled, in a kind of spiritual sense, so you can come home and just recharge. Yeah.
All right. Well, there you have it from the horses themselves, all of us working from home and trying to balance our relationships and our families and ourselves. Most importantly, I think that for me personally, that was the biggest lesson, is I have to make time for myself if any of this is going to function. And that was...
and get off the pot.
Not my issue, but thanks, David. Thank you all for listening. Obviously, this has been therapeutic for the three of us as well. Please continue to send in your questions, to rate, review, and share. We are only as impactful as our listeners allow us to be. So if you found any of this valuable, please pass it on. And we will see you next week on the Weekly Energy Boost.